The hypocrisy of the left knows no bounds, and Donald Trump's recent executive action, specifically on the January 6ers, has caused them to completely expose themselves and collectively lose their crap. So what we want to see today, of course, is leftist Democrat reporters being put in their place by Republicans. But before we get to these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
President Biden changed all this. Remember the 37 murderers that he commuted their sentences? Remember two of them, one that he pardoned, the one that he pardoned killed 2 FBI agents. Another one literally beat an officer to death with a hammer. And another one literally tied up a woman who had accused him of rape, tied her up in duct tape, put a center block around her, and threw her over a bridge live. And so you remember that the violence that he pardoned, and I'm just saying you got to compare both of them, Erin. If you're going to cover the story, cover both stories.
President Trump's pardons. Some members of your own party, including Senators Tom Tillis and James Lankford, have criticized President Trump's pardoning of violent January 6 offenders. I mean, some of these recipients battered police with a metal baton, a fire extinguisher, a stun gun, a pole, a wooden plank. You were at the Capitol that day. You've condemned the violence. Do you agree with those pardons?
Well, here's the difference. Donald Trump campaigned and said he was going to pardon the January 6 people. I mean, he was very transparent about it. Unlike Joe Biden, who I believe went on CNN, I believe it was Jake Tapper's show, and said that he would never pardon his family and he would not issue any preemptive pardon. So there's a difference. Trump was transparent. He campaigned on this, said he was going to release the prisoners.
But not the broad, I guess it's the broad swath.
Right,
he did say, and that is true, he did say, look, I'm going to pardon them. But even his vice president and Pam Bondi and others said, even Speaker Johnson said, if they were violent, they really shouldn't get a pass. They've gotten this pass.
Yeah. One of the problems with this whole January 6th situation is the January 6th committee. And we believe that they botched a lot of things. There's a significant percentage of Americans, especially conservative Americans, that believe that many of those rioters were enticed by undercover FBI agents and people within the FBI. The FBI has not been forthcoming. I don't know if that's true or not, Pam, but I don't believe anything that the January 6th committee wrote. And when Joe Biden pardoned the whole January 6th meeting, which is unprecedented. Jamie Raskin, I know he's been on CNN several times saying you should never pardon he was criticizing Matt Gaetz was wanting a pardon in the last Trump administration, and he was just blasting. Well, he and Adam Schiff accepted pardons.
So, of course, the left-wing media is completely offended that Donald Trump would dare to pardon those awful January 6ers, all those people who were mulling around inside the vestibules of Congress, right? And Markwayne Mullin rightly points out, hey, did you know that Joe Biden actually pardoned people who really committed murder with hammers and tying cinder blocks around people and throwing them off of bridges into the water, right? That actually happened. That was a thing that Biden did. But Donald Trump issuing pardons to people who were politically persecuted, right? That is a bridge too far. And I love how James Comer also points out, yeah, remember, there were FBI agents in the crowd on January 6th. I believe the numbers were 26, and only 5 of them were on duty. And of course, that's just what we know, because the FBI obviously has not been cooperative with any of the questioning. And I sure hope we get some answers on that soon, because there were some very strange goings on that hopefully will be revealed in the new January 6th commission that will be enacted by the Republicans, all right? And hopefully this time we'll actually get some real answers to some real questions that people actually care about. Of course, the big failing of the left, the big failing of the Democrats right now is the simple fact that, guess what? No one cares about January 6th anymore.
Was Trump greatly responsible for the attack on the Capitol? You go back to January 2021, it was 48%. By the time of December of 2023, look at that. Again, a clear shift down to 37%. This is an 11-point drop, very much mirroring that drop that we saw that the folks said that, of course, would make him ineligible for the presidency. So that is part of the reason why, right? Fewer folks thought he was responsible, greatly responsible for what happened on January 6th. But it's not just that. It's that people simply put didn't care as much about the attack on the Capitol. Look at this. January 6th is your biggest memory of Trump's first term in office. By the time of 2024, look at this. Look at this. It was just 5%. Just 5% of Americans. And among Republicans, it was just 2%. So the bottom line is fewer Americans faulted Donald Trump or thought he was greatly responsible for the January 6th attack. And more than that, as it went into the rearview mirror, far fewer folks thought that it was their number one memory.
Yeah, and this is an extraordinary number, given that President Biden, when he was still in the election, was really putting this as his main issue. Never really was registering.
So try as they might, the leftist Democrats really wanted January 6th to be a thing, right? They wanted to use it as a cudgel against Donald Trump, right? It's going to exclude him from being even close to the levers of power, except for the American people don't care about it. Was it a big deal at the time? Sure, when you're being shown ad nauseum all of these images, right? And there are some violent videos out there of people behaving very badly, and that's all they showed. But there's also hours upon hours of footage of people not doing anything, and yet they were still prosecuted and given sentences. And don't forget, please don't forget, there were people who were in jail awaiting trials, awaiting charges even, and never got them, right? Habeas corpus isn't a thing in DC, apparently, okay? So this is where we're standing, where people just don't care about it. And now that that's all worn off, guess what? Only 5% of the people think of this as a major issue of Donald Trump's first term. And thank goodness, because we have so many things coming up that are going to be awesome in the second term. Fingers crossed it all happens. But let's get back to reporters being destroyed on this same issue.
Congressman, you were there that day. There are offenders on January 6th who violently beat police officers. There are offenders who are convicted of seditious conspiracy. That is the truth.
This is a political world, Jim, and I don't remember you all on CNN condemning Joe Biden for commuting the sentences of murderers and child molesters, which he did, and you all
Congressman, I'm not asking about that. Congressman, we have talked about Joe Biden's pardons.
You never do,
Congressman,
Jim.
we did talk about it. We talked about Joe Biden's pardons.
Oh, Jim, you did not. You all read your report from the Democrat National Committee, as you always do, and you attack Americans.
False. Congressman,
no. You spent 4 years making excuses for
of?
a fellow with Alzheimer's in the lead office in this country.
Congressman,
and
you and I know.
you
and I talked about this. We raised questions about that time and again on this network, on this program.
You all made
I'm asking
excuses
you a
for
question.
him for 4 years.
Is
You elected
President
him.
Trump responsible?
We saw during the Black Lives Matters marches. We saw in the riots all across the country. Those people walked. Nobody went to jail for that. Millions upon millions of dollars of property was damaged. You all didn't raise a finger, didn't say one word about it.
Congressman,
you
that's
showed
just
it and
not
said,
true.
"Oh, it's all in order." You showed we had riots where towns were burning down, and they were allowed to do it. They were allowed to do it, and you all did not. You covered it, Jim. Come on, Jim.
All day
you gave
long.
it the bare modicum of coverage, and then you went on to trashing Trump or some conservative cause.
I was at the White House covering the first Trump administration when they had rioting outside of the White House. I mean, that was covered on CNN. What you're saying, this is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah.
This is CNN. This is the news. We are asking you to come on and tell the truth.
And that's why more people are watching the Cartoon Network SpongeBob reruns right now, Jim.
Oh my goodness, poor Jim Acosta. This is CNN. We ask the tough questions. We cover everything fairly, right, without bias. Yeah, that's why your ratings were in the toilet, because everyone sees how unbiased you happen to be. Yeah, you ignored the BLM Antifa riots, right? Anything that happened, burning down police stations, attacking federal buildings, right? All of that was perfectly acceptable in the days of rage following the George Floyd incident. And of course, we have CNN over here trying to pretend that, yeah, we covered Biden fairly. We totally talked about his mental decline. We talked about all the people that Biden pardoned, right? No, you didn't, right? Where was that criticism up until the point, of course, that Biden was exposed for who he is and had to drop out? It was non-existent, all right? So don't pretend you're anything other than partisan hacks, right? And of course, Jim Acosta has to get that little dig in. This is not Fox News. We are not partisan. Bull crap. We all can see it. And we love seeing these leftist Democrats posing as reporters being exposed for exactly who they are. But of course, we have to see a little bit more.
Here's what Trump said to reporters today when he was confronted with what J.D. Vance had said.
J.D. Vance, he said, this is a week ago, he said, if you committed violence on January 6th, obviously you should not be pardoned. Why is your vice president wrong?
Well, only for one reason. They've served years in jail. They should not have served, and they've served years in jail. And murderers don't even go to jail in this country. Their lives have been ruined, and in many cases, listen to me for a second. Stop interrupting. They served years in jail, and if you look at the American public is tired of it.
They served years in jail, and they did it for me, and that's why they got pardoned, and that is political, my friend.
Well, they also got pardoned because he can, right?
Yeah.
Because whether you agree with him, whether people agree with him or not, he believes he's got a mandate. He's got no guardrails. He doesn't have a re-election. And if you voted for him thinking, oh, don't take him seriously, he's just joking, well, you screwed around and you're finding out.
No, I mean, I'll answer.
You don't think there's a difference between trying to overturn an election and
I don't.
violent social justice protests?
Well, social justice. Okay.
I mean,
I'll
give it to you, Scott. Let's say that they're violent. You don't think there's a difference between trying to obstruct the peaceful transfer of power
here's what I think.
and violent riots in the street of any kind? The ones in 1968, the ones
What were
in
the objective of those riots?
I think both groups of people were mad about something going on. They wanted to change it. They took matters into their own hands that they should not have done. In both cases, you had people engaging in activities that they should not have engaged in. Now, our culture and our public discourse decided one group of people, social justice is good, and these people were bad.
I don't even want to get in this debate because it's done. People voted, and as Anna said, FAFO, okay? Go Google it if you don't know what that means, because I can't say it on national television. But this is the era that we are in. And there were people in protests. They were not riots, they were protests. And there were people who showed up at the protests and did bad behavior. But that was because a man was murdered unjustly.
That doesn't give you the right to break into the Nike store.
That
doesn't give you the right to break into Tiffany's.
How about you let me finish? How about you
blowing up a police precinct?
How about you let me finish?
Arthur.
Thank you. That's what we do at this table. A man was killed, and that's why they protested. Now, I don't sit on this network and try on both sides something. If you were violent in those protests, repercussions should be had. But that is not what happened on January 6th. What happened on January 6th is people went and stormed the Capitol because a man pouted and lost an election and couldn't stand up. Nobody died because of that election. People died because of Donald Trump's actions and because, I don't know if it's the people you defend, but officers died on that day?
No. One guy had a heart attack 5 days later.
Okay.
So, of course, this is one of the big problems with the left. They still believe their own misinformation, right? As was pointed out there right at the end, one officer died 5 days later. No officers were killed on that day of January 6th during that horrible, violent insurrection that almost overturned the entire country, right? And the only people killed on that day were the protesters, the people that were pro-Trump. But we're really exposing the total difference between the BLM accepted rallies, the days of hate, right? The summer of love, and the January 6ers, right? One was treated totally different, with reverence, with awe by the media, right? No blame whatsoever, despite all of the murders, all of the destruction, all of the fires that were happening. And the other, because they were against our institutions, have to be clearly punished with sentences that were far beyond what should have been handed out for simple trespassing, for simple meandering, for simply hanging around the Capitol, right? And if there were violent people, as I've said before, yeah, they should be prosecuted. But guess what? They've already been sentenced. They've already had their lives ruined. And as Donald Trump points out, yeah, they've been in jail for a long time. And that's enough when other people, other murderers in New York City, no less, really get off scot-free and never get prosecuted at all, right? And that, of course, is the big difference, with the hypocrisy of the left being exposed for everyone to clearly see. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.